Hi, everyone. Jason here. Quick programming note before we dive in on this episode. So, we had a plan. The plan was for this episode to be 15 to 20 minutes long, but once we hit record, the insights started flowing and we ran long, like 2 times as long. But when we hit the editing room floor, we realized this stuff is pretty good. This is exactly what CMOs and marketing executives need to hear about the role of SEO right now. So we split the episode into 2 parts. That's enough explanation for now. Let's get started with part 1 of redefining the role of SEO in an AI world. Hello and welcome to the principal's office, where you're not in trouble, but we do need to have a talk. I'm Jason Cook, and I'm joined today by Stephen Settanni, Tom Dwyer, Laura Lee, and Jenny Halasz. And my friends, like I said, we need to have a talk. In our last episode, we concluded that SEO is in fact not dead, but in the words of Dylan, times they are a-changing. Today, we're going to talk about how the emergence of AI is changing the SEO role within medium to large enterprises, despite the fact that it represents 1% or less of traffic to most websites. So I'm pretty intrigued by how the conversation is going to go today. So let's get to it. I want to start with a couple of areas that we see as fundamental changes. And I'd like to start with you, Laura. It feels like SEO is everything and everywhere now. What say you about that?
I mean, this is a soapbox that I get on a lot, so forgive me, but it's so important for brands to be thinking about not just what they're doing on their website, but what they're doing across all of the channels that they operate in. So omnichannel approach to visibility. So things like affiliate marketing, things like social media, which is, not only for engagement, but also for just a signal to LLMs, to every person and every entity that's out there, to have a consistent brand message. So the things that you're saying on your website, you're also saying in your email marketing, you're also saying on social media, you're also saying the same thing in your PR distribution, your affiliate marketing. And it's important not just for the visibility, but some of these brands also have partnerships with the LLMs themselves and they're training on what these publishers are saying. So if they're recognizing you for like the best mattress or the best gaming PC, that's great in and of itself, but that's also it's feeding into those models. So it's even more important than it used to be consistently pushing your brand message across all of those channels.
Yeah, I think that's super critical. And, it's always been important, I think, from an SEO perspective. But I think as these AI surfaces become more and more part of our daily routine from a consumer standpoint, I think marketing executives need to understand that, that the whole ecosystem goes into what they see there, right?
Yeah, and I'll also say on the topic of social that now Instagram public posts are now being indexed by Google. And of course, Reddit has the partnerships with Google. So it's not even just about having a good, like I said, not just having good engagement, but also you are impacting search results with your social media posts.
Well, and that's not necessarily something new, right?
Sure.
Especially with Reddit. We've seen this happening well before we got to this point. But I think the thing that companies need to be really focused on right now is brand reputation and how their brand is perceived in the market. Because there's one thing shooting for the best, and there's something completely different having a big disconnect between, say, your social media audience and who you're actually selling to. So creating that reputation connection is going to be very important for brands going forward.
Right. And you also don't know where in the funnel you're going to be reaching these users. So whether that's in the email marketing or in the social media or on your website or someone who's reading, whatever brand it is that's saying the top car of the year, maybe they weren't planning on that yet, but as your brand is now in their mind, that pays off later in the sales funnel.
And I think that's really important. And I think the two of you really touched on something that I want to switch gears now. So we've established one of the areas of change is now, an SEO really is sort of an omni-channel consultant within the organization, right? But you talked about making the connection and understanding, brand reputation and things like that. And it made me think of another area that I think we've talked about is really a big fundamental shift, and that's around measurement and just how the SEO role, I think can help stakeholders and executives really understand what all of this means, because there's a lot going on, right, Tom? I think, there's just a lot to track, and the tracking is changing. So I was wondering if you had thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I think to build on what Laura and Jenny were talking about, right? I mean, it's no longer a single point, not a single point entry, but coming in from a direct journey, right, where we knew how they got there down the path of search and how it used to work. So our traditional metrics, while they're still important, I don't want to say they're not important, because they are. They don't tell the whole story, right? And we've always kind of struggled with that in search anyways, trying to get attribution from initial exposure down to the actual whatever the final result is going to be. But this is just complicating it even more, because now they're coming from multiple directions that we have no idea where they started or how they got there and what path they took to get to where they finally ended up to the decision point. Right, so that omni-channel or that multimodal search, how people are finding what our clients are looking for, makes it not nearly impossible, but requires a different set of data points that we need to find to try to understand how are we moving the needle, or are we moving the needle, right? Yep. So if you think about how people used to get to it, right? They do a search, click a link, end up on a web page. Pretty simple. We can at the end of the day track those kind of things. They made multiple steps to get there, but they're definitely a more linear path. Well, today, right, they may start out asking an AI agent a question. Then they may go, as you all were saying, they may end up on YouTube looking at videos, and they may end up on Reddit after that, and then they may end up back in AI. And then they're going to go back to Google and they're going to do a query, right? So we don't know how they're getting around all those things. So that brand visibility, that brand reputation across that journey becomes critical, right? Because we're trying to have consideration along a longer funnel, no longer, bottom, top, and middle, right? There's a lot more involved in this than used to be. So we have to start asking the question, what data do we have available to us beyond clicks, beyond impressions, beyond traffic to, visits to the page and that kind of stuff. So we need to start asking, what else can we get access to that's going to help paint that picture? What is the brand sentiment, right? What are the outcomes that the business is looking for that we can tie these back to, right? Whether it be through surveys or they've done some research and they know that someone who sees a video is more likely to buy, those kind of data points that we can pull together. And then finally tell that final story, right? So it's in this day and age, it's measuring our influence in the entire marketplace across all those different surfaces, and not just whether or not they click through to our site.
Well, and that really underscores. Sorry, Stephen, go ahead.
Oh, no problem. I just was going to say really quickly, if you're going to have any channel marketers that are going to be able to try and triangulate data points to be able to make meaningful assumptions and insights, SEO is probably pretty good, because almost a decade ago, a little more than a decade ago, we used to be able to see what keyword drove traffic and then converted or drove conversions. And Google said, nope, that's too much data for you. So they started encrypting this type of data for organic. Paid still gets access to that data, but we were able to triangulate ways to be able to show the impact and meaning of the value of a keyword and where it ranks and the traffic that we get to it. So I think we, at least the SEOs that are a little bit more seasoned have this type of experience. And although this, in terms of AI, is new, the disruption to our field is not new. And so I think we are well equipped to be able to handle that. And then another thing that I'll add is there are a lot of tools, I know Tom had mentioned some of them, where like SEMrush's AIO Enterprise and Scrunch and a lot of these different tools that are doing this type of tracking that allow us to see where we're being mentioned for a series of prompts and the different sources where, as Laura had mentioned, and I think some of the others, like where Reddit is being cited or other sites that do pertain to brand reputation, where we can get a sentiment analysis of how is AI referencing us based off of how other people are referencing us. And so these are relatively in their nascent stages. And so we've had some success as well with giving feedback to these types of tools to say, hey, we want to see this, we want to see that. And so I think that that's another thing. If you're in contact with SEMrush or Scrunch or Profound, be upfront with them and let them know, hey, I want to see this. And I think they're really trying to make these things as updates are being made. And I think that being vocal and trying to get what you want out of them is recommended.
Yep.
Well, and you make an amazing
Jenny,
point and really underscores what we were talking about with this omni-channel tracking. As SEOs, we've had our fingers, tentacles, whatever, in everything for years, because we've recognized that funnel is not a straight line. And I think that's where we're really going to start to see more of a need to talk to the other partners in the organization about how we're coming together. So if we want to be recognized as the best hotel on the Las Vegas Strip, then we need to be talking to the folks in PR about what they're seeing in terms of how are we being mentioned in Reddit and then we need to look at the AIOs to see what it looks like there, and then we need to look at the prompts and the citations that are happening to see in the AI tools to see where we need to focus our efforts in our partnerships. And we could be talking paid partnerships, we could be talking affiliate partnerships. So all of this comes together in this omni-channel content environment.
And what you were trying to say there was that Google did us a favor by taking away the keyword data so many years ago, because then it just prepared us for this moment, right? So we should be grateful to our friends at Google for taking that data away and making us more indispensable within these organizations. That was my takeaway. I don't know if
I will not forgive them. I'm not going to.
I'm just going to say my comment not provided. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm just shocked that you've heard SEOs expressing anything but gratitude to Google.
I mean, that's my thought as well. But anyway.
I mean, to be fair, I think it had something to do with security and like tracking people too closely.
Yeah.
But
unless you were
paying for it.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway. Okay, that's it for part 1. If you're watching or listening on YouTube, you can find the link to episode 2 in the description. On any other podcast platform, it will be, you guessed it, the next episode in the queue. I'll see you over there.